"Nobody dates people like me," she whispered across the table. But this single father's response turned her world upside down. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. It is always amazing to see how far these videos reach. Caleb Morrison was tucked away in a corner booth at the Riverside Bistro in downtown Portland. It was March 15th, just past 6:30 in the evening, and he was anxiously tearing a paper napkin into confetti, struggling to recall the last time he had actually been out with a woman. The math came out to roughly 3 years and 2 months, back when his wife, Jenna, was still alive, before that car crash shattered his reality. His sister, Brooke, had orchestrated this whole ordeal, setting him up with a nurse who worked alongside a friend of hers. She had spent the last fortnight bombarding him with messages insisting, "You have got to get back out there, Caleb. Do it for Ava. She needs a happy dad. Just give me one evening. If it is a disaster, I promise I will never ask again." He finally agreed, if only to make the relentless notifications stop. But being a 36-year-old widower, raising a 6-year-old girl with severe facial burns made romance feel not just impossible but completely selfish. How do you even begin to tell a stranger that your child accidentally pulled a pot of boiling water off the stove 2 years ago? How do you explain the 4 months spent in burn units, enduring endless skin grafts and surgeries? Or that she still has 17 procedures left and comes home from first grade in tears because her classmates call her a monster? Caleb glanced at his phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes, reading a text from the sitter. "She is doing great. Stop worrying and go enjoy yourself," followed by a cheerful smiley face. He tried to recall what fun even felt like. His life was nothing but construction sites, surgical waiting rooms, and fighting school administrators to protect his daughter. Just as he was typing out a fake work emergency to bail, a woman burst through the entrance looking utterly terrified. She scanned the dining room, clearly hunting for a familiar face, and Caleb realized it was her from the picture Brooke had sent. She wore a high-collared, long-sleeved burgundy blouse, vastly overdressed for the warm March weather. The fabric rose high on her neck, and her dark blonde hair hung loose, curtaining the sides of her face. She did not look like she was there for a casual dinner. She looked like a soldier marching into an ambush. When Laura finally saw him, she inhaled sharply. Visibly gathering every ounce of bravery she possessed, she approached the booth, her fingers nervously knotting together in front of her waist. Caleb stood up immediately. His mother raised a gentleman, after all, and extended a hand to greet her. Her grip was trembling as they touched, but as she pulled away, her sleeve slipped up just a few inches. Caleb caught a glimpse of what looked like burn scars etched across her wrist and forearm. It was that specific, textured discoloration he knew all too well from 2 years of sitting by Ava's bedside. His gaze instinctively darted to her neck, where the high collar failed to hide the jagged lines of healed skin. Laura saw him staring. Her expression collapsed, and she sank into the booth as if the gravity in the room had suddenly doubled. A thick silence hung between them for 30 seconds. Laura lifted her menu only to drop it back onto the table without reading a word. Her hands were trembling so violently that Caleb could actually see the paper vibrating against the wood. Then she locked eyes with him. Her voice was quiet but steely when she spoke. "I need to get this over with before we waste any time." Caleb nodded slowly. "Okay." Laura reached down and deliberately shoved her left sleeve up to her elbow. The scarring was thick, textured, and severe, wrapping around her arm and disappearing under the cloth. She turned her head and swept her hair back, revealing the damage that trailed up her neck. 8 years ago," she said, "I survived a house fire. My parents did not. These marks cover my left shoulder, arm, neck, and half my back. I have had countless surgeries, and I am not finished yet. I need you to understand that since the accident, I have been on exactly 2 dates. Both men were polite enough through dinner, but I never heard from either of them again." Her voice broke and she dropped her gaze to the table. "Nobody wants to date me, Mr. Morrison. So if you want to walk out right now, or fake a family emergency, I get it. I completely understand. I will not be offended. I just thought it was better to be honest up front rather than pretending." The way she used his surname felt stiff and defensive, like she was building a fortress to protect herself before he could hurt her. Caleb felt his heart shatter for the woman sitting across from him. She was so accustomed to rejection that she had started rejecting herself first. He let the silence hang heavy for 5 seconds, watching her muscles tense as if she were steeling herself for a physical impact. Slowly, he reached into his jacket to retrieve his phone, and he watched Laura's expression shift. She clearly assumed he was checking the time, looking for an excuse to bolt. Instead, Caleb flipped the device around, thrusting the glowing screen toward her. It was a snapshot of Ava taken last month. A little girl beaming at the lens, though the camera captured the raw truth of the burn scars mapping her right cheek, jaw, and neck. "That is my daughter, Ava," he murmured. "She is 6 now. 2 years ago, while I was working a site and my mother was meant to be watching her, she pulled a pot of boiling water down on herself." Laura's eyes widened, instantly pooling with tears, but Caleb pressed on. If he paused now, he would break down right along with her. Second- and third-degree burns covering 15% of her body. She spent 4 months in that hospital bed. 17 surgeries down, and the doctors have more on the schedule. Every night when I tuck her in, she tells me she is ugly. She believes no one will ever love her because of her face. His voice fractured on the word face, forcing him to swallow the lump in his throat. He locked eyes with her. "You are the most breathtaking thing I have seen in 3 years, not in spite of your scars, but because of them. They prove you survived. You fought, you won. You are sitting right here, breathing, and that takes more courage than most people will ever know." Laura crumbled. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing openly in the middle of the dining room. Without a second thought, Caleb slid out of his seat and squeezed into the booth beside her. He wrapped a protective arm around her trembling frame. "I'm sorry," she stammered through the tears. "I am so sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart." "Don't apologize," Caleb whispered. "You just shared your deepest wound with a stranger, and I just shared mine. I think we are allowed to cry about it." They sat huddled together for 2 full minutes while the other diners politely pretended not to look. When she finally caught her breath, she looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. "No one has ever said anything like that to me. Ever. In 8 years, not a single person has called me beautiful." Caleb pulled a napkin from the dispenser and pressed it into her hand. "Then you have been listening to the wrong people. Those marks mean you are a survivor, a warrior, and honestly, that is the most beautiful thing a person can be." They lost themselves in conversation for the next 3 hours, completely forgetting to eat until the waitress circled back for the 3rd time and they realized they were starving. Laura opened up about the fire that claimed her parents when she was 24. She spoke of the brutal year of recovery, the endless surgeries, and how she walked away from her marketing career. She had pivoted to nursing, desperate to offer others the same grace the hospital staff had shown her. Now, she worked the pediatric ward, specializing in burn trauma. Caleb shared the story of losing Jenna 3 years ago in a blindsiding car wreck and the struggle of raising Ava alone while running a construction crew. He confessed the heavy guilt he still carried for not being home the day of Ava's accident. He described how his daughter had transformed from a fearless, bubbly 4-year-old into a withdrawn 6-year-old who hid behind her hair, convinced she was a monster. At 10 o'clock, as the restaurant prepared to close, they walked out to the parking lot and Caleb said something that surprised even him. "This is going to sound absolutely insane since we just met, but would you be willing to meet Ava?" Laura froze, staring at him as if he had suddenly sprouted a second head. "What? Already?" she asked, stunned. "We have known each other for 3 hours." "I know it is fast," Caleb pleaded, "but she needs to see someone like you, someone who bears these scars and has still built a life. She thinks she is unlovable. You could prove to her that isn't true." A dozen emotions flickered across Laura's face. "I am not good with kids," she stammered. "I mean, I am a pediatric nurse, but that is professional. This is different. What if I say the wrong thing and make it worse?" Caleb knew she was lying about her skills with children. She was just terrified of failing his daughter. "Please," he said, "not as a date, not as a girlfriend. Just as someone who understands her reality in a way I never will. Meet her once. If it feels awkward, we never have to do it again." Laura studied his face for a long moment, her eyes glistening once more. Finally, she exhaled. "Okay. Yes. When?" "Tomorrow," Caleb answered immediately. "Sunday. The park. Low pressure, just the 3 of us." Laura nodded, though the fear was etched plainly on her face. That night, standing in the sanctuary of her bathroom, Laura stared into the mirror. She peeled off her shirt, revealing the map of scar tissue spanning her shoulder, upper back, arm, and neck. Scars she had spent years trying to hide. She hadn't bared her skin to a living soul in 8 long years. Fresh tears tracked down her cheeks as the doubt crept in. Am I just going to be a reminder of her pain? What if I terrify her? What if I'm the exact opposite of the help she needs right now? Across town, Caleb pulled the covers up to Ava's chin. "Daddy, did you like your date?" she chirped. Caleb smiled softly. Yeah, honey, I really did. I met a very special lady, and I'd love for you to meet her tomorrow. Ava bolted upright, eyes wide as saucers. Is it a new mommy? No, sweetie, Caleb said gently. She's a friend who has burn marks just like you. She's incredibly brave, and I have a feeling you two will get along. Ava went silent, processing the words before whispering so quietly he almost missed it. Is she still pretty? Even with the burns? Caleb felt his heart shatter into a million pieces. She is stunning, he promised, inside and out. And so are you, my love. Exactly as you are. By 11 o'clock the following morning, Laura was already perched on a bench at Laurelhurst Park. Despite the warm March sun, she was swaddled in long sleeves. She had arrived 15 minutes ahead of schedule, her nerves too frayed to stay inside her apartment a second longer. Her mind raced, scripting and rescripting conversations with a 6-year-old burn survivor, terrified she might say something that would cause more damage. Then she spotted them. Caleb strolling across the lawn, hand in hand with a little girl whose long, dark locks were carefully styled to mask the right side of her face. The child was buried inside a hoodie with the cowl pulled tight, ignoring the 70-degree heat. Laura felt a physical ache in her chest. She knew that posture. She recognized the desperate, crushing need to vanish that had defined her own life for years. Caleb offered a wave when he saw her, but Ava kept her gaze glued to her sneakers. As they approached, Caleb made the introductions. Ava, meet Laura. Laura, this is my daughter. Ava offered a fleeting glance and a mumbled, "Hi." It was barely a whisper. The three of them froze in a heavy, awkward silence for 10 agonizing seconds, and Laura felt panic rising in her throat, utterly lost on how to bridge the gap. Instinct took over, and she dropped to one knee to meet Ava's gaze. "Your dad mentioned you're an artist," Laura said softly. "Is that right?" Ava gave a microscopic nod, eyes still averted. "I'm hopeless with art," Laura confessed. "My stick figures look like accidents. Do you think you could show me how to draw properly?" Ava peeked through her curtain of hair, one eye wide with disbelief. "Really? You want me to teach you?" Her voice carried a note of pure shock, as if the idea of an adult asking for her help was alien. They migrated to a nearby picnic bench where Caleb produced a stash of paper and crayons. Ava immediately set to work. Laura settled beside her. With deliberate, slow movements, she rolled up her sleeves, exposing the mottled scars on her arms without saying a word, simply letting the truth exist between them. They colored in silence for 20 minutes, during which Ava stole repeated glances at Laura's exposed skin. Finally, in a breathy whisper, the question came, "Does it still hurt?" "Not now," Laura answered gently. "It hurt terribly in the beginning and for a long while after, but the pain is gone. Now it's just a part of who I am." Ava's hand drifted to her own cheek, fingers tracing the ridges beneath her hair. "Mine still hurts," she admitted. "Especially though leishy in the cold or if I rub it." "That's completely normal, sweetheart," Laura reassured her. "Your body is still hard at work healing. It does get easier. I promise you." A heavy silence fell before Ava spoke again, her voice trembling with a sadness no child should know. "The kids at school, they say I'm ugly. They call me a monster." Laura felt hot tears instantly prick her eyes. Without hesitation, she swept her hair away from her neck, baring the gnarled tissue there. "They used to say the exact same things to me," she said fiercely, "and sometimes adults still think it, even if they're too polite to say it." "But do you know the truth?" Ava shook her head. "Scars are proof that we survived something impossible, something that tried to break us but failed. That makes us warriors, Ava, and not everyone gets to claim that title." For the first time, Ava lifted her chin. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she pushed the hair away from her face. The angry, red texture of healing burns marked her cheek, jaw, and neck. She looked Laura in the eye. "Am I really a warrior?" Tears streamed freely down Laura's face. "You are the bravest warrior I have ever known." Ava lunged forward, wrapping her small arms tightly around Laura's neck. 10 feet away, Caleb abandoned the pretense of checking his phone. He turned his back to them, his shoulders shaking as he wept, unable to contain the emotion any longer. The next 3 months saw Laura and Ava become practically joined at the hip. Their Sunday meetups at the park became a sacred ritual, never missed. Slowly, the walls came down. Ava began wearing her hair in a ponytail, and by June she agreed to a trip to the public pool, a monumental step that required a swimsuit and total exposure. As they waded in, Ava gazed at the map of scars across Laura's shoulders and back. "Aren't you afraid of them looking?" she asked. Laura's voice trembled as she confessed, "For 8 years, fear ran the show. I stayed in the shadows, but eventually I just couldn't bear the hiding anymore. I decided I wanted a real life, even if that meant the world had to see every broken part of me." Ava reached out, tracing the ridges on Laura's hand with her own marked fingers. "Look," she whispered, "we're the same." Their courtship had been a slow burn, a careful dance around Ava's feelings to ensure they never rushed her healing process. One warm evening in May, while Ava drifted off inside, Caleb finally leaned in on the porch. After the kiss, he pulled back, breathless. "I am falling so hard for you. It's terrifying, honestly. I haven't felt a connection like this since I lost Jenna." Laura looked down. "I'm scared too. I keep waiting for the moment you wake up and realize you could have someone whole." He silenced her doubts with a deeper, more urgent kiss. "Don't ever say that. You are everything I want." By June, Laura was ready to share her world. She walked him through the pediatric burn unit, the same hallowed halls where she and Ava had faced their darkest days, years apart. "I lost a year of my life in this room," she whispered, "just relearning how to exist." Marketing felt hollow after that. "I knew my scars had a purpose, to guide these kids through the fire I'd already survived." Caleb watched in awe as she led a support circle, gently teaching a 15-year-old survivor how to embrace her reflection rather than hide it. Then came the moment that changed everything. As the teenager wept and clung to Laura in gratitude, Caleb saw past the romance. This wasn't just a partner for him. She was the lifeline Ava needed to heal. The 4th of July brought fireworks of a different kind. While Laura played cornhole with Ava, Caleb's sister Brooke cornered him. "She's lovely, Cal, but are you thinking clearly? Bringing someone with that much baggage into Ava's life? Is that wise?" Heat flared in Caleb's chest. "Baggage? She is the most resilient human being I've ever met. What are you implying?" Brooke pressed on. "Ava is fragile. If this goes south, the fallout could be catastrophic. She can't handle another heartbreak, Caleb." He set his jaw. "Laura isn't leaving." "You've known her for 4 months," Brooke countered, planting a toxic seed. "You can't possibly predict the future. What happens when the reality of raising a traumatized child becomes too heavy for her to carry?" That evening, Caleb went quiet, lost in thought. Laura misread his silence as regret over her appearance and immediately walled off her heart to soften the inevitable blow. 2 weeks later, the peace shattered at 2 in the morning. Ava woke up shrieking, burning up with a fever of 103. Her scars were angry and inflamed, a visual echo of the accident that sent Caleb into a tailspin of panic. He dialed Laura with shaking hands. 15 minutes later, she burst through the door, still wearing her pajamas. She checked Ava with professional grace, her voice steady. "It's just a localized infection in the tissue. It happens. We can skip the emergency room for now. I have everything we need in my kit." Laura didn't sleep a wink. She spent the night cooling Ava's fever and whispering soothing words until the pain subsided. By dawn, the crisis had passed. Ava slept soundly, her hand firmly clasped in Laura's, who had dozed off in the bedside chair. Caleb stood in the doorway at 6 o'clock, watching them. In the quiet morning light, the truth hit him. This was it. This was the life he wanted to wake up to every single day. 3 days later, as Caleb prepped dinner, a fully recovered Ava looked up from her sketchbook. "Daddy? Can Laura be my mom now?" The wooden spoon slipped from Caleb's fingers, clattering loudly against the tiles. "Excuse me," he stammered. Ava's gaze was intense. "I want her to be my mommy. You smile different when she's here, like you did in the old photos, and she makes me feel brave. She gets my scars, Dad. She doesn't look at me like I'm scary. Please, can we keep her?" That night, Caleb asked Laura to sit down. Seeing the panic in her eyes, he quickly added, "Ava had a question today. She wants to know if you'll be her mother." The air left Laura's lungs in a rush. He took her hands, anchoring her. "I realized that's exactly what I want too. It's not a ring just yet, but I'm asking you to join this family, for real. Move in with us, help me raise her, be the partner we both desperately need." Tears streamed down her face, choking her words. "I never believed anyone would sign up for this, for someone like me." Caleb wiped a tear from her cheek. "I am signing up for all of you. The scars, the grit, the history, all of it." She nodded frantically, a sob escaping her throat. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." August arrived, and with it came Laura, dragging 2 suitcases and a million silent fears across Caleb's threshold, terrifying. She'd somehow ruin every Ava, however, was a whirlwind of joy, unpacking every item like it was Christmas morning and mixing Laura's clothes right in with her dad's. She lined up the books with precision and announced that Laura's fancy soaps had officially upgraded the home's entire scent profile. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Dinner became a nightly event where Ava narrated every second of her day without taking a breath. Nights were for voices, Laura acting out every character in their storybooks, and mornings were for braiding Ava's hair to frame her face rather than shield it. By September, Laura launched the Warrior Initiative at the medical center. It was a mentorship drive designed to connect young burn victims with adult survivors who had forged happy, fulfilling existences. 6-year-old Ava stepped up as the youngest mentor on the roster, paired with a tiny 4-year-old girl fresh out of her initial surgery. Caleb observed his daughter comforting the little girl, pointing to her own skin and whispering, "Look, I've got them too. We're warriors, and warriors are brave." It broke Caleb completely. He had to step into the hall to hide his sobbing. October brought the cameras. A local station ran a feature titled Nurse Sparks Hope, filming Laura, scars and all, as she spoke about strength. She spoke eloquently about empowerment, insisting that trauma doesn't define a person, it refines them. Back home, Caleb took it all in from the living room couch. Ava was tucked tightly against his side. Seeing Laura's face fill the frame, a woman who hid for 8 years now leading a movement, brought fresh tears to his eyes. The pride was overwhelming. His sister Brooke rang the moment the credits rolled. "I misjudged her completely," she admitted. "She isn't broken, she's magnificent. I'm so sorry for ever planting doubts in your head." "She really is," Caleb replied, his voice free of resentment because having his sister on board was all that mattered now. On December 20th, exactly 9 months to the day they met, Caleb asked Laura to cover a volunteer shift at the clinic. She assumed it was just business as usual with the support circle, but stepping into this pediatric ward, she found the halls decked in holiday lights, lined with every child she had mentored that year holding posters. The cards collectively asked, "Will you marry our Caleb?" Ava stood at the very end, clutching the final piece of the puzzle. "And be my real mommy." Laura's hands flew to her face, the tears starting before she could even turn around to process the scene. There was Caleb, kneeling on the hospital floor, encircled by a beaming crowd of medical staff and families. "Laura Hayes," he began, "you showed my daughter that our marks make us fighters, not victims. You taught me that beauty isn't skin deep. It's about survival. I can't picture another sunrise without you. Will you be my wife? Will you make this family official?" Laura was too choked up to speak, so she just nodded frantically through the tears. Ava charged in, colliding with them for a massive 3-way embrace while the whole ward erupted in cheers and happy tears. They tied the knot the following June, bathed in sunlight at an intimate garden ceremony. It was a cozy affair with about 50 guests. Ava served as flower girl in a sleeveless gown she chose herself, wearing her scars like badges of honor, and when Laura appeared, Caleb audibly gasped. She wore a strapless wedding dress bearing her arms, shoulders, and neck to the world for the first time in 8 years. She was trembling, yet her chin was lifted in defiance and grace. She looked absolutely radiant. Tears were already streaming down Caleb's face when she arrived at the altar to hear him whisper, "You look stunning." "I'm scared to death," she whispered back, "but I'm finished with hiding." Their vows wrecked the emotional stability of every guest present. Caleb vowed, "You proved that scars aren't flaws, they're evidence of resilience. You rescued my daughter's spirit and healed my heart. I promise to tell you every single day how beautiful you are." Laura replied, "I spent 8 years believing I was unlovable, but you showed me I was just waiting for someone who sees the soul, not the skin. You and Ava are my miracle. I am never letting go." Ava performed a reading she wrote herself, a poem about warriors mending broken pieces into a family. The audience was a weeping mess by the end, and their first dance included all 3 of them, a unit forged in fire and love. All the teens from Laura's survivor group attended, standing tall as her chosen kin. 2 years down the road, Laura and Caleb welcomed a baby boy, now a chaotic 1-year-old. 9-year-old Ava transformed into the fiercest big sister on earth, and the quartet returned to the hospital that Sunday for Laura's group session. A new soul walked into our center today. She couldn't have been more than 14, her skin marked by fire, hiding deep inside an oversized hood. With her chin tucked to her chest, she whispered, "Nobody could ever love this. I look like a monster." Her voice was so fractured it broke Laura's heart instantly. Laura dropped to her knees beside the teenager and rolled up her sleeves, bearing her own heavy scarring to the light. Then she spoke softly. I said those very same words 8 years ago. I believed them with my whole soul, and I was dead wrong. She gestured toward the corner where Caleb was bouncing their infant son while Ava pulled silly faces to make the baby giggle. Laura continued, True love doesn't notice the scars. It notices the strength beneath them. It sees a survivor. It finds beauty in the deep places where shallow people are afraid to go. The girl finally lifted her head, eyes traveling from Laura's burns to the laughing family. You're married? You actually have a life? Laura smiled. 2 beautiful children and a husband who tells me I'm gorgeous every morning. He means it too. I am beautiful, and so are you. You are here. You lived. You are a fighter. Tears began to stream down the girl's face as Laura wrapped her in a warm embrace. Across the room, Caleb watched them, looking at his wife with the same wonder he'd felt for years. That evening, after the kids were tucked in, Laura and Caleb relaxed on the porch with a glass of red wine. Laura broke the silence. Do you remember our first date? When I tried to convince you I was undateable? Caleb chuckled. I remember thinking you were the gutsiest woman I'd ever met. Sitting there, showing me your history, basically daring me to walk away. Laura traced the uneven texture of her arm. I used to despise these marks. I wasted 8 years hiding in the dark, hating myself. But now, I look at them and see everything they gave me. Caleb took her hand, kissing the scarred skin of her knuckles. They led you to me, and to Ava. They forged you into the incredible woman you are today. I wouldn't change a single inch of you. Laura rested her head on his shoulder, whispering, I never imagined this was possible. A real family, a man who adores me, children who think I'm the most beautiful mom in the world. I spent so long thinking I was damaged goods. Caleb squeezed her hand. You were never damaged, baby. You were healing, and now you're helping others heal. Sometimes the very thing you think disqualifies you from love is exactly what guides you to the truest kind. Laura had spent 8 long years convinced her physical trauma made her unwanted. Meanwhile, Caleb had been raising a daughter who battled those exact same insecurities. One blind date, one moment of raw honesty, and a blue-collar dad who valued survival over perfection. 3 destinies were rewritten that day. Scars are not defects. They are badges of honor, proving you went to battle and won. They are testaments to your grit and refusal to fold when the pain was blinding. The right partner won't see a victim. When they look at you, they will see a champion. They see someone who walked through the inferno and emerged on the other side, still standing tall. If you have ever felt too damaged, too marked, or too strange to be cherished, if you have hidden away because you feel unworthy, you need to hear this. You are so incredibly wrong. Your wounds, whether visible on your skin or hidden in your heart, do not define you. They refine you. They carve you into a person who understands suffering and appreciates the absolute miracle of existence. There is a heart out there searching for the exact traits you are trying to hide. They are looking for a warrior who has tasted fire and forged steel. Laura found her tribe by dropping her guard on a first date. Caleb found peace for his family by recognizing the soul beneath the skin. Smash that subscribe button if this story touched your heart. If it reminded you that beauty has no mold and true love looks deeper than the surface. And share this with a friend who needs to know that their battle scars make them legendary. Thank you for spending time with us. And never forget, you are sufficient, just as you are. Your soulmate is out there, and they are going to adore every jagged edge you have been trying to conceal.